My guy.
Hey James, what's going on?
What's up, man? Sorry I'm a little bit late.
That's okay. I think the rest of the team is still kind of getting connected in to make sure we get everything
Hey, no worries.
properly streaming to where it needs to go and all that fun stuff.
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
we will. Um, Cloudly team, are we all set to go? Are we on the Restream network and wherever else we need to be going? Well, maybe that's not part of that. Maybe that's just some of our audience members that are connecting in right now. That could be it too.
Sounds good.
Let me peek at one thing here. Bear with me one sec. Let me
You're fine, brother. Take your time.
just make sure we got everything in the right place. Well, we will. I think, you know what? I think we'll just get rolling. Worst case scenario, we'll have the Zoom recording we can share and
It'll be just fine. Let's go.
go
Everybody,
that
everybody
route.
that's here is gonna be here.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. That is true. Well, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I suppose I shouldn't say good morning. It's morning for some of us. It may be midnight for others. Greetings. There we go. We'll go more generic. Um, Very cool. So, hey, everybody. I am Eric Dreshfield. I am part of the executive advisory team at Cloudly, and we've been having these great conversations over the last several months with people in technology, not necessarily just the Salesforce ecosystem, but in technology in general, just to kind of get a better understanding of what's happening out there, what are people interested in, what kind of conversations are going on, and what is
All right. Well, I think we're live, but I also think we lost Eric. If you cannot see or hear Eric, if Eric is frozen for you, we are here to talk a lot about what's going on in the sales world today. And I'm sure that if Eric was not frozen, he would probably give me a great introduction. But since he is frozen, I will jump in and give everybody a great introduction. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is James Say What Sales Buckley, and Eric and I have been friends for a long time. And he invited me to come on to this show to talk about things like my career path and my background, and then, of course, how technology has helped me in my career. There's been a lot of shifts in the sales and marketing space here recently as technology has evolved in the space of sales and marketing. That said, let's talk about some of those things. So, who am I? Why am I in this room? First of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Uh, I am James Buckley, and I host the show Sell Better, sellbetter.xyz, for those of you that want to check it out and come to the daily sales show. So, the Daily Sales Show brings in the finest sales folks in the world globally and gets their tactics and techniques out on the table so that other folks that are in the room can start using them and getting results themselves. That's its function. I have the pleasure of hosting the best sales brains in the game and a little bit about my career path. In 2014, I started my first software company, and prior to that, I was in and out of kitchens. I was a cook. But then also, I would go in and out of those and do door to door sales. I did door to door residential and then door to door B2B as well. Eric, I was just introducing myself.
Well, I don't, you know what? I don't know what happened. My internet connection just crapped out on me for a second there,
Hey, it's
or a
okay. This
minute.
is part and parcel to hosting a live show.
Right, exactly. And then now the audience realizes it's live when something like that happens, right?
I was going into my how I got into this business circa 2014, which is around the time you and I met, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been just a little after that. I'm not sure, but great. Yeah, that was step one. Having you go kind of go through your own career path
Yeah.
and your journey, and so I'll let you just dive right back in.
Thanks, man. When I saw you froze up and I host a live show, so I knew that after about 30 seconds, I better just pick up the mic and run with it. All
Appreciate
right,
that.
so 2014, I started as a cold caller, and I don't know if anybody in the room had started around that time, but at the time there really wasn't a lot of like onboarding or training. It was basically like, welcome to the team. Here's a laptop and a headset, and you have to schedule 15 meetings every month, and you like that was your training. So, at the time there was no Slack; it was just Google Chat, and I remember a moment where I was on cold calls, power dialing, and I had this like very natural delivery for myself. I would pace the office. It would drive my colleagues crazy as I did it. But I remember my VP of sales at the time reached out to me in Google Chat and was like, "You sound amazing on the phone. You're going to be so good at this." And I was a new rep at the time. So that was like a really big confidence booster for me. Fast forward, I became the top performing SDR at the company. I ended up taking over the business development team. That company sold 4 years later, and then I ended up working with Ringlead in 2019, which was acquired by ZoomInfo. And you can kind of see where this is all going. At the end of 2019, I got a call from a man named John Barrows. Him and I had developed a very strong relationship over the years, and he said to me, "The way you make people feel is amazing. Do you want to do it with me?" That was how he pitched me on the job. So I said, sure. And shortly after I started in 2019 with John, COVID-19 hit and we pivoted to this webinar based model. And that was where Sell Better was born. So we began doing twice a month and then once a week and then twice a week. And before you know it, we were live every single day. And here we are. So that is how I started in this business. That's how sales became a vehicle for me to become the host of the show. And I currently am the host of that show, the creator of that show. And then also I sell the sponsorship side at the same time. So it's a very like hope you can wear lots of hats type of role, which is exciting. The days go by really quick.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for that, James, and thanks for jumping right in when you noticed my connection
As someone that
had a
hosts a
little
live show, my
fun,
friend, I
let's
knew
just say.
exactly what to do.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so that's awesome. I appreciate the background, and I know everybody on the call here certainly would has probably found something interesting already in what you've had to say and how you got to where you are today. And that's half the fun, I think, of getting to know people and trying to figure out who do you know that knows what and can do certain things, and where is the best person to go to talk to when you have specific questions
I am a
about
wealth of
something.
resources.
Yeah, I know James, you and I have had a few of those conversations on give me a sales tip on how to close this deal kind of thing,
Right.
and certainly valuable conversations, and good to hear all that. So thinking back to those earlier days, what was technology like for you back
Mm.
then? I mean, was there technology? I mean, were you literally like a spreadsheet and tracking things in a spreadsheet or pen and paper, or was there some sort of systematic online-ish program that you were using to kind of track some deals?
Yeah, so it might help to give a little bit of my tech background. In the year 2000, which is 25 years ago, holy cow, I left the kitchen permanently and I started as a network specialist at the University of Miami in South Florida. Now, that gave me access to, at the time, Windows XP was all the rage. There was Active Directory. I don't know if anybody here remembers Active Directory. There was a lot, there's a lot of those types, a lot of printer troubleshooting. I can't print. Well, is it plugged in? Oh, right. And then they plug it in and it
Yep.
works. Well, I'll just close this ticket out. So that was my entree into tech services, so to speak. And then I kind of took a break and I backed away from that and I went back to the kitchen for a very long time. And that was my career. I stayed in the kitchen for about 15 years. And then in 2014, I graduated from college as a non traditional student with a writing degree, and I started in SaaS again. And that was my introduction to Salesforce.com. Salesforce was not well known to me at the time. I didn't really have a good grasp on CRM as a function or as a product. What I did know is that I have the gift of gab. I'm able to speak very clearly. I'm able to convince people of things and persuade them to make decisions. I this is a gift I've always had. So I wanted to put that to use in the sales capacity once again. In and out, I had done door to door and I had that experience and I knew I liked sales. I just didn't, I just it wasn't quite clear to me that it was my future per se. But then when I started in SaaS and learned Salesforce and its value to businesses, this was like the hook for me. And I was like, man, this is so fun. And that was what really grabbed onto me was that despite how clunky the tech was, it was a fun thing to pick up the phone and dial and talk to someone about a problem they had or explain to them that they could do something that they didn't know that they could do and then ask them if they wanted to see it. For me, this concept was like, oh my gosh, I'm not like walking in the heat door to door, banging on doors, getting dogs sicked on me, or having guns pulled on me, or getting yelled at by old ladies behind a door. I'm like in this air conditioned office, picking up the phone for hours at a time and sending cold emails. And there's ping pong tables and bean bags. And oh my God, like this is such a different world, you know? So I was like hooked immediately on this idea, despite the clunky technology. It wasn't until about 2 years in when I started to get involved in the sales loft world and see what it was doing. I started to get involved in Ringlead about a couple years after that and saw the balance of like data quality and data standardization and how data enters a business and then moves through their system effectively. This was like an eye opener for me about business best practices. And then I saw my sales game kind of go forward because the technology was moving forward for me and I was seeing its impact grow alongside my sales and marketing knowledge. So I feel like watching this happen as I was growing as a professional was such a benefit because I didn't have all this like preconceived notions. It was basically like enigma and epiphany after epiphany, watching the technology impact my customers, our business internally, the way our customers were asking questions and buying. This was all like such an incredible eye-opening experience for me as a newcomer to the game that had only been on social media as a business professional for like 5 years at the time.
Interesting. Yeah. So, thinking back to my own journey, I can kind of relate to some of that. I mean, I literally made a career move to a different company simply based on their own particular product. Saw something in the product I loved and decided I wanted to go work for that organization.
That's a
Ended up working
remarkable
for them
thing.
ended up working there for 4 years at
Yeah.
that particular company, just simply based on that one little demo I saw, got me all excited. So thinking about how technology has evolved and how sales and conversations have changed over the years, and in
Mhm.
particular through the COVID time. Is it this may seem like an odd little question, but is it possible that we rely too heavily on technology now to do
Ah,
our daily jobs, to sell things, to do
I
all the
have
things?
I have a lot of thoughts around this, Eric, and I'll tell you that I've grown fond of saying this. I do not think that artificial intelligence will replace salespeople. I do think it will replace salespeople that are not using artificial intelligence. So we've said this a few times on the show. It's been said a couple different ways, but I think that we rely on the technology to, and I'm using air quotes for those of you that are tuning in audibly here or to the audio, uh, do the work for us. I think this is like a dangerous area to trek into as a seller. It makes us a little bit lazy at times. I think we take it for granted that it's going to give us the real information. There's even a disclaimer now. If you look on the chat GPT, it'll say double check things. It'll say there's like a little disclaimer at the bottom
Hmm.
that says check all the information that you get. And that's just because generative AI was first to the scene. And now it's evolved into a thinking machine. But because it was generative first, some stuff is generated, not real. So there's this fear in my mind that if I'm, for example, using ChatGPT or some research AI solution to give me a good reason to reach out to a prospect, it might give me five of those reasons. Well, what if I don't check things out first and I just choose one randomly, and that one of five that I chose happens to be generated and made up and not true? Not only have I lost that opportunity forever, but I've damaged my credibility as a seller to that prospect. Doesn't matter where they go, they might remember that I'm a buffoon that was absolutely way out in left field and off on this call that I made because I didn't check what AI sent me. So, what's the point? The point is that I agree that it is helpful. I do not agree that we should lean on it so heavily that we become dependent on it. And that's the crux of the conversation at hand in the modern age today. When you get in a room full of sales leaders and you say, "What's the biggest problem you have?" And they say, "Well, I have lazy reps. I have reps that want to punch in a couple of things and then have it done for them. And that's not efficient and not what I need."
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. And I could say personally that I've been a victim, if you will,
We
of
all
some
are.
of those misguided contacts and emails
Yeah.
where they approach me, these people I don't know, just randomly approach me with this, hey, I understand you're doing this and this and this at this company,
Mhm.
when in fact that company doesn't do any of that stuff.
I
And
have countless emails, Eric, in my own inbox that are so off base about what we do and how we function. And I respond to them all the time. I respond to them. And here's my canned response. What is it that you think we do here? That's my response. Eric, I've sent that message to thousands of bad emails. I've never gotten a reply. Not
yeah,
once.
yeah, that does not surprise me that you've never gotten a response. But and it is interesting that your take is, let's ask them a question. I mean, my typical response is delete and report as junk. Although sometimes I take a screenshot of it and I share it on social media and I ask my audience, what should I do here? What's the
Mm.
appropriate response? Is it A, delete and report junk? B, respond with, who do you think I am, or what do you think I do, and all sorts of other things. And some of those responses I get from some of my followers on those types of questions are humorous and quite worthy of sharing, and really provide a lot more insight probably into the whole process of what's going on
I think we
than
think
just a
we're gonna
normal
come off
conversation.
mean. I think we think we're gonna come off mean or rude when we say those things. But if we, as people that are the recipients of those messages, if we don't kindly correct or at the very least speak up about the validity or the relevance lacking in those emails, that behavior will never change.
Right.
And I continue to harp, I will die on that hill because it's on us to talk to the sellers so that they change their behavior. We can't just constantly complain about it, but never do anything or take an action as a recipient to change it. Just like I take every cold call that I get because I'm a cold caller. I would be an absolute hypocrite to deny every cold call that I get or hang up on cold callers and ask me to remove them from my list and then go out there and host a live show about how we need to make more freaking cold calls. What kind of an asshole would I be to
uh,
do that?
yeah, they're the one thing that's coming through in this part of our conversation right now, even though we're sort of talking about AI and technology, the thing we're really talking about right now is humans. Everybody's a person. There's still that person behind all of this stuff. And one of the things that I know you've heard me say it many times, James, and you've probably even said it in some version. People buy from those they know and trust,
Mm.
and that starts with the human connection and the conversations and just getting to know someone and what their concerns are. And you can't do that, I don't think, through some automated email or some generated response. It's got to be a personal conversation.
I think you can learn the possibilities with the solutions that are available right now. That's an important part of the puzzle. Um, I think you could also get signals that are really important for timing. People say often that a lot of sales is about timing. I would agree. One of the reasons that I ask people where things sit on their priority list right now when I get to them is because timing matters. And if something is way down on their priority list, I'm probably not going to put a lot of pressure on them to move, to do things. Uh, so you're right to say that we're talking about technology, but we're talking about people. But I think that points to where we are. We can't talk about the technology without the people and how it impacts them. Not yet. So so until we can talk about the tech and leave the people out, let's assume the people have a valid role to play. Yeah. So when I think about the shifts that have taken place in sales and marketing strategies as this technology has changed, what I see are a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of like, I'm worried that I'm going to lose my job. I don't think people need to worry about that. Perform, hit the number, do the job, and you'll be fine. There's a lot of, I don't know where to start. And I tell people take it slow. A lot of AI and what I've learned, and I'm 43 and I'm a reluctant AI adopter. That's my label that I proudly carry. I'm reluctant to dive headfirst and just trust it, you know. And that's because I've seen the movie Terminator, and there's a lot of things that I think about on the long scale of things. So not just because of Terminator, but also just because like I want my voice to be the thing that my buyers, my recipients hear or feel when I do outreach. So, because, and I say my voice, meaning even in writing, I want it to come across as if I wrote it. So I don't have, here's a good example. I don't have ChatGPT write an email for me for this persona at this company. No, I write an email that has my voice, my tone, my diction, my language. And then I punch it in to ChatGPT and I say, improve this. And then I say, revise this and make it shorter. And then I say, revise it again and make it more about them and less about me. And then I add a little context about the trigger I'm using and say, change it up and add this trigger in there. Well, you know what? Give me two versions, one with prose and one with bullets. You can already see how this concept of iteration has changed the way sales and marketing professionals function when it comes to creating relevant and meaningful messaging for their sellers. And I'll tell you, those are what top performers are doing. Bottom performers, people that are going to be fired, replaced, let go, and replaced by AI solutions, they do things like, hey, write an email for me, copy, paste, send to 1,000 people named Jim. This is a thing of the past. And those people, that bottom 10% of our entire billions of salespeople in the world, they're on their way out. They will become cashiers and people that function behind counters with names on their shirts in the very near future. That's my prediction.
Interesting. Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely an intersection point between human and technology,
Oh yeah.
and one of the things that you just said, not necessarily directly, I think, is that intersection point varies by individual
It
and by
does.
the function that they play in their organization, and even based upon what the organization they represent does, whether they sell a product or a service or anything. There, all of those variables play into the mix of what's today's recipe look like?
Mm.
Are we making a sourdough bread or are we making a rye bread? I mean, you know, what are the various little pieces that go into that that make it unique? And your job as the top seller is to figure out how to harness all that together, properly present it on an individual basis to each individual customer you're dealing with, so they properly understand the message you're delivering and the value they're going to get from whatever product or service it is that you're trying to sell.
Well, I think that there is room for volume in certain aspects. For example, if I know that my signer has to be a CMO, that means that I have an approach, one whole approach that just goes directly to the CMOs. But I also have another approach that goes to this other persona that is adjacent to the CMOs. It's not a bottom up approach, but it's a lateral approach. This director of marketing, this marketing VP, this marketing lead that works right with that CMO every single day, they're getting a whole nother subset of messaging from me that's probably being helped to be written by AI solutions. That's probably I'm getting fed signals about that person. I've done a disc analysis on them, if you will, and I'm trying to find out what kind of personality type they are, so that when I do call them, I can say, "Hey, what's going on, Hosier?" Right? And they're like, "I'm connected to you. You did research on me. You're a human being." You and I have had conversations about how I humanize myself often through my sales process. So just to put a nice fine point on that, I might send you an AI assisted email that is 25% customized by me, the human. But then I'm also sending you a blank connection request. You have no idea if that's some bot that's automating that or I sent that to you manually. And then I'm also going to dial your phone number. All this happens in like 5 minutes if you're a brand new lead of mine. It's unlikely that a robot hits you one, two, three platforms at a time. And here's the kicker: I don't give a shit which channel you choose to respond to me on, but respond to me. 9 times out of 10, if I 1, 2, 3 it like that, I typically get the LinkedIn connection request accepted first. And that's usually because if you think about it, in a 5 minute fell swoop, I've hit the inbox, I've sent the connection request, their phone rang, and I left a voicemail. That's a human being. That is like surefire, no question, without a doubt. This is a person that's reaching out to me right now. Already, I have a much higher likelihood of getting a reply on one of those channels for that reason and that reason alone.
Interesting. And, my own personal tip, I don't know, tip's the wrong word, my own personal activity on LinkedIn when I get the connection requests from people, I look at the number of mutual connections that we have. I don't automatically accept everyone.
Uh,
Maybe I should, but I do look at the number of mutual connections we have. And over the years that I've been on LinkedIn, which is, I don't know, probably 20 years or something by now, that threshold has come way down. I mean, it
mm,
used to be, do I have 100 mutual connections? Now it's probably like 10. Do
yeah,
you and I know 10 of the same people, and who are they? and
right.
and if I look at that list of mutual connections and like, yep, I really actually do know this person, I've had a conversation with them, it's not just one of those, yes, I accept your connection. I am way more likely to accept your connection, respond to your message, and those types of things.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not interested in buying the product you may be about ready to hit me with the sales pitch on, as soon as I hit your connection request and say accept. But in my own personal journey, I've always got the Midwest Dreamin' conference in my mind, and a lot of those conversations shift into, can you become a partner of Midwest Dreamin' and sponsor
Mm.
the event or participated in some way, shape, or form? And so, in a way, that's my version of selling, I suppose. And from what you just said, all of those approaches, all those different connections makes a whole lot of sense. And maybe I need to step up my own game a little bit more and try a stronger approach.
Well, I think we give up really fast, and rightfully so, right? Not too long ago, just a few years back, go back like 2 years, 3 years in your mind, there was this conversation happening around what was the common number of touches that it took to have a meaningful conversation or even a reply from a prospect. And that number ranged anywhere from 15, I saw like 25, 26 touches, and
Wow.
you're like, wow, that's a huge number of touches. Like, how annoying must that be? Not just for the buyer to constantly see you and hear from you and always have to be ducking you, but also for the seller to have to constantly be coming back to this person all the time because it takes that much. Well, now that number's down to like six touches. Like, if you can't generate a conversation in six meaningful, relevant touches, give that person a break and come back. This is the norm now. So we're already seeing the exhaustion that the misuse of automation caused. Because once we realized that it took 15, 20, 25, 26 touches to generate meaningful conversations, it was like, oh, all hands on deck to create the best nurture sequences that a salesperson could ever build. Well, here we are with automation and AI working in tandem and domain health being at an all time low. Entire organizations exist to help keep your domain healthy, where that wasn't an issue before. And I try to keep this in front of sellers and people that are in the game so that they understand and keep their perspective. We have what I like to call SaaS blinders on. I got that term from my friend John Barrows. We live in the SaaS bubble, and we have to step out of that bubble sometimes and realize some very simple truths. Here's a couple in case you need them. Other industries outside of SaaS could use your services. Don't single yourself out as a
Mm.
seller by just shooting for an industry you're comfortable selling into. You could be missing a huge portion of your TAM, your total addressable market, right? But here's something else to note. For every solution that's made that helps a seller sell, there is a solution made to help a buyer avoid sellers. Just think
Mm.
about that for a minute. I'll give you the best example I know. You're familiar with my friend Tom Boston?
Yep.
Tom put out this great post about how iPhone a couple years back released this feature where you could hit a button and it'll say silence all unknown callers. Just think about what that feature did for cold callers worldwide overnight. No ring ever hits those prospects' phones that engage that feature. It just goes straight to voicemail. So those sellers, where they used to rely on a number of connections per set of dials, they now have to recognize the value in voice messages. It's the number of voice messages that I can leave and the number of voice messages that are going to be heard and listened to or read via transcript versus the number of connects I can get, because that number has dramatically decreased. Here's another one. I'll give you four, let's say 8 words that will probably land you in a better position, that are super tech savvy, but no one ever says them when they're cold calling. Is this your cell? Can I text you? Those 8 words are magical. And right there on the call, I will text them with my first and last name and say, I just texted you. Did you see me there? Okay, cool. I'm going to save you as a contact. That way, if you ever call me, it'll actually ring. This is a guaranteed way to get on a very quick text relationship with your prospects, and they appreciate being a contact in your phone, and you appreciate being a contact in theirs. And now, all those barriers where you thought you had to wait for an email reply, I hope they see my social media message, I left a voicemail, all those barriers go away. And you're on this text back and forth with this human being. Your deal can move exponentially faster because of this.
And that's something that has definitely changed and progressed forward over the years too, as well. The whole SMS texting conversation. I mean, it used to be super expensive for one thing.
Yeah,
Companies used to charge for all that stuff,
that's right.
and now it's like it's I wouldn't even call it second nature. It's first nature. I think in the younger generations out there, they prefer texting to phone calls or anything else. I feel like,
Well,
and
I also think that we need to embrace that as sellers because, and this is about future proofing your pipeline. There, everywhere in the world, there are 48 and 55-year-old sellers that have been sellers for 25 and 30 years, and they are now selling to CEOs that are in their late 20s.
right.
Those CEOs, they don't want your Lord of the Rings novel emails. They want a text message and a PDF that can be downloaded and sent to their team via whatever app they're using for communication, probably Slack. Right? Like that's what they want. So like every seller, regardless of age, there is a standard of technology knowledge that you need to be able to function in the modern sales and buying world. And I always say this to people, like, we think that every prospect we talk to that's interested immediately enters our tofu, our top of the funnel, and now they're in our sales cycle. It's not true. It's a myth. When they enter the top of your funnel, everything stops for a moment and you enter their buying cycle. And you're there, right there at the top of your funnel until they're at the bottom of their buying cycle. The last 10% of their buying cycle represents 100% of our sales cycle.
Mm. Sounds like an iceberg.
It is an iceberg. But once you see the berg and it's light enough that you have the time to make the turn, hashtag Titanic reference, right? Then you know, okay, my happy ears can go away and I can enter their buying cycle very comfortably and start exploring how they buy things. You think about learning we always talk about our tech stack. What about their tech stack? Right? What are they using? What do I have to go through as the seller? We rely so heavy on our tech stack, we forget all about theirs. Hey, one of the best questions that we got on the Sell Better show from several people now, and I think it's becoming more common to ask this. When was the last time you bought something like this and how did that go? If you think about that question for a minute, there's a couple of pieces to it, a couple of angles to it. First of all, if they can't answer that question, you're probably talking to the wrong person. Right? But if they do answer that question and they're like, well, we had a little bit of trouble getting it over finance. And you're like, okay, tell me why. Right. Well, finance didn't understand its value and we had to explain it to them through a presentation, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Do I need to talk to finance? You can pick apart their process and be present for it each step of the way. And then at the end of that cycle, when they're like, all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, James, let's move forward. Now I can get excited because now my sales process starts. And because we've already crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's on their side, their tech stack is all set. We know everything is good. It's going to move really fast. I'm going to have like a 2-week close at most, and it's going to make it through finance no problem because we got ahead of that early. Right? So the concern is always what we have as sellers at our disposal to use as a weapon. And if you think about that mentality, it's not a good one right out of the gate. Why are we attacking our prospects? Instead, we should be like, lower the drawbridge, man. Let me in. Let me in so I can help.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's that kind of exemplifies the shift, I guess you could say, over the years, not just in the way sellers and buyers behave and think, but it helps to highlight the good side of what technology's out there and can do. Um,
I'll tell you
makes
something
me
good that really changed my perception. This is what kind of woke me up was I don't know if you've seen Agent AI yet, but this thing is wild. Like to see us be able to choose an action and then build an agent that does the action for us. I think, as I stated before, like generative was first, and then it was like research and like insights, and now we're starting to see actions on actions. Like there are people that are building agents to buy for their companies, and like that's we talk all the time until there's all this. I'm sure everybody put a one in the chat if you're in the room. Put a one in the chat if you've heard somebody say people buy from people. Right? That's man. Everybody has been saying this for until people stop buying from people and until the robots can buy from the robots. I'm going to be safe. Well, it's coming. People are building robots to buy right now, right now. So if you're thinking that you might get the big boot because AI is going to take your job, learn how to use it. Learn how to harness that power. And you're going to be one of the people in the seats that are building things to help these companies do these things.
interesting trend or theme that I'm detecting in all of this conversation here. And you said it early on. Those who harness the technology, who use the technology, are going to survive. It's not exactly the words you just used, but it's generating the same point, I suppose. So thinking back to your younger days, if you could go visit yourself 20 years ago and provide yourself with a bit of advice on how to be successful in the business, what do you think you'd say to yourself back then, armed with all the knowledge you have today?
I was going to say, do I have all the knowledge I have today, or is it just ignorant me going back to
No,
ignorant me?
absolutely, absolutely armed with
Yeah. All
everything you
right,
already
cool.
know
So,
today.
so younger me, 20 years ago, I would have been 23. First, I would have had to pull myself off of all the substances that I was on at the time. But then I would probably say, build your brand, but don't tie it to any one particular industry. I feel like I did a great job positioning myself as a person that had sales value for salespeople. But man, I got a lot of life value too. And I don't get the chance all the time to have those types of conversations like I'd like to, because I kind of cornered myself into this like tech sales brand. So I would give myself that advice. Another piece of advice that I might say, another thing that I would tell myself is to stay on the tech side longer. Don't neglect the technical advancements as well as the skill advancements. I got so into sales and process, Bant, Medic, Spin, Sandler, Gap selling, John Barrows, all these trainings, right? But I forgot to learn the tech that was growing underneath me at the time. So then I had to go back and retroactively learn how to do something in Python. I had to go back and retroactively figure out what's a merge field. How do I decide what an output and an input is? How do I design that? I don't know that language instinctively like I once did. So there's a tech gap that I ended up suffering from, and that's what made me a reluctant adopter of AI. But now that I'm over the hump, now that I'm starting to see it in action and I'm starting to see the benefits myself as a user and a builder of things, it's very difficult to turn away from it. And I'm watching reps, especially older reps, get very frustrated. And they go to these webinars and they try to learn things, and you can spot them in the chat. They're like, "This is going too fast. I can't keep up with all of this. I really need a document that walks me through how to do it." Well, you know what? If I gave those folks a document, they'd still come back to me and be like, "Hey, can you help me?" And that's just because there's a gap. It's natural. Don't be ashamed of it. Embrace it. So I would tell my younger self, stay up to date. Keep with the tech trends. Learn the languages that you need to learn and don't fall behind on that. It'll help you. I didn't think it would, and I let it go, and now I'm suffering for it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. To For that, I mean, technology is constantly evolving. You and I know that probably as well as anybody, since we've been in this industry for a while.
Windows
And
95 days, baby. Command DOS prompt. Let's go.
yeah, I was just going to say, what about pre-Windows? I
Yeah,
remember those
DOS
days
prompt.
as
You
well.
want to talk about
Yeah,
Linux? Let's talk about Linux.
yeah. Those were the days, as they say, right? Uh, so yeah, it is definitely interesting, and it's certainly understandable that some people might struggle to keep up. And there's so much change, so much going on, so many new things popping up all the time. Ooh, look, there's something else shiny right over there that I got to go
Right.
check out.
That's right.
But it helps to spark curiosity, at least in my mind. Just from my own experiences, thinking about Dreamforce as a conference, for example, I always make it a point to go wander the exhibit hall where all the sponsoring partners are. If if nothing else, just to potentially catch a brief conversation
Mm,
with a product or a service company that I've never heard of before, that that it turns out they sell something that I need, and I wouldn't have known that had I not randomly walked past them in the exhibit hall and seen a brief demo, or heard a couple of buzzwords in a conversation they were having with somebody else, and went, "Oh, hey, wait, let me listen in on this a little bit more." Um, it's human curiosity is a powerful tool, and I think all of us need to figure out what's that do for us, not just as a person, but like you said, there's the professional James, there's the personal James, and then there's the manipulation of all of that. That's probably the wrong word. The marriage of all of that to bring it all together to create this who is James Buckley in total, and what do you represent, and how can you help other people while you're still helping and growing yourself. And I think we need to keep that all in mind. Is It's a learning experience for everybody, uh, to go through life in general as a professional, and as well, and to figure out how do we improve things and leave the world a better place than where it was when we first got here. Um,
I'm very happy hosting the show for that reason. I think about the tactics I've employed over the last couple of years and the things that I've run that I never would have thought of myself, and most of them came from guests that I had on the show. So I'm blessed in the sense that I get to learn from some of the best in the business on a daily basis with the show that I host, and that my team created with me. But then at the same time, I get to teach other people too. And I get up in the morning every day for the messages that say things like, that thing that you showed me changed my life, or that message that you sent me or helped me write changed my results last month and I hit quota for the first time. Or James, that thing that we talked about helped me stop drinking as much as I was. That's the shit I get up in the morning and live for. It's worth more to me than any paycheck I've ever been cut. So embrace the tech, but embrace the human side of the tech. That's probably one of the better messages to come away from this thing with. The
Yeah.
human side matters. That's why we're still talking about it. Until we're not talking about it, you're gonna have to focus on it. Even if agents are being built to buy from other agents, that's irrelevant. There's still a human component in there somewhere. Figure out where you sit.
Yep. Yep. So James, first off, thanks so much for this lively conversation
Yeah.
and all the great words of wisdom and advice that you've shared.
Thank you.
Um, can one more thing I want to ask you to share with the audience? Just what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Should they want a deeper conversation with you and
Yeah.
perhaps
So
enlist you to help?
normally I tell people to follow me on LinkedIn, but I'm rapidly approaching the ridiculous cap of 30,000 that they put on you for network. So instead, I'm going to give the world here my personal email, my professional email. Hit me, James at sellbetter.xyz. And for those of you that are looking to learn more or want to come to the show, I think I put a link in earlier, but I'll drop it in one more time here. The show is 100% free to all. If you want to get better every single day, this is the show to do it. We are live Monday through Friday. So by all means, hop in there. And I tell people, come to the shows that are relevant to the job you have and the shows that are relevant to the job that you want, because you're going to want to put some seeds and some roots down and be able to hit the ground running when you get promoted.
Fantastic. Well, James, thanks again for joining us today. Everybody in the audience, thank you as well. Feel free to connect with James and myself offline. And thanks for joining us. And everybody have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Dresh.
You bet. Take care, everyone.